G'day, Chief. Welcome to the Inner Chief podcast and this special episode, which we call The Mini Chief. These are short, sharp highlights from our fabulous guests, where you get a 5 to 10 minute snapshot of the highlights from their episode. Righto, Chief. Without further ado, here is the Mini Chief episode for this week with George Hunt, former CIO of the Year. So, how do you win their hearts and minds, George?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I wish I had a really slick answer that I could share with everybody, but...
Doesn't have to be slick, because you've already got results.
I think to win their hearts and minds, you have to have a compelling vision or a compelling proposition to offer them, and you have to sell it to them. And if you sell the proposition to them, you can then sell the journey to them. And if you can sell the journey to them, you can grab their heart. And then my job becomes really easy then. My job is to set them up for success because I've already won them over. The convincing has been done at the front rather than you wait until you hit the difficult points in a program or delivery of something and people are questioning whether their heart is in this or not. Yeah. So it's almost like you bring forward emotional connection to the beginning and then you trade on that emotional connection all the way through. And I've done a lot of that in my current role, which we'll talk about in a few moments, I'm sure.
And isn't that the truth? And so many people, because technology, and just about all technology work is about change, right? Because you're constantly introducing new tech. And because of the nature of the industry, I think people forget just to add in what the vision is and what the journey is going to be and what the benefits are and what it's going to be like at the end and to properly sell it, because it happens all the time. Because they skip that step, they don't get their hearts and minds.
That's right. I also think the way that you market the proposition is important. I love a good analogy. I use it every day of my life, or a good story. Yeah. You know, in order to just help people understand what we're trying to ask them to do. But I think that's a big part, that storytelling, that marketing, that sort of, you know, how do you convince somebody to climb a mountain?
Sure.
You know, what is I've always been interested in the power of goodwill or the power of discretionary effort. And I kind of think, how do you unlock that discretionary effort? So why do people climb a mountain? Why did you take on the challenges in your life that you took on? Not just because they're there. There must have been something that compelled you to do it. And that's a powerful lever in an organization, which is if you win the hearts and minds, the rest is relatively easy. If you don't win the hearts and minds, you know, it's really difficult to recover. And especially when you hit the tough times, you've got nothing in the bank to trade on. No credibility, no goodwill credit that you can trade on when the going gets tough. And
it will get tough because when you climb a mountain, you know, the very nature of it is that it's difficult.
Yeah,
right?
So when you hit those dark moments, I've ran the London Marathon twice, so I've hit the wall twice.
Yeah, right.
And I kind of, you know, I was a lot younger, but I remember thinking, looking back on it, what was it that made me go through that moment around the 20-odd mile mark? What is it that makes you go through those tough moments? And it's probably because I've got this thing in my head of what it'll feel like to get over the finish line. Something is pulling me forward, whereas I could have found 100 reasons to stop.
Well, your brain would have been giving you every single one of them, right? Because that's right. What happens at the 20-mile mark.
That's right.
Somewhere between 30 and 35 kilometres, the brain decides, okay, I've had enough. I'm going to just make a list of all the reasons that you should stop running. And if you don't have what it's going to feel like at the end or the whole purpose for doing it, you will fail.
You will.
Right? And that's a perfect analogy for business, because nothing worth doing in business is short of a marathon. Right? All transformations take years, or if they're a decent transformation of any sort. And so you have to have the purpose within your blood, and you've got to know what the outcome's going to look like and feel like. As you know, we both agree that there's too many transformations go on without, you know, eliciting or explaining what it's going to be like and making that sale from the very beginning.
No, I'm completely with you. And so I think, you know, your question was, what is it that you have to do to win the hearts and minds? Is you have to try and impose that feeling of what it'll be like to be successful and achieve the outcome. And if you do that, then I think you really do unlock all of the magic ingredients that allow a program or a transformation or an outcome to be achieved.
Spoke about loving analogy and stories. Do you have any go-to analogies or stories that you just love?
Technology is difficult. Introducing new technology into a live organization is tough. And we've all read the press about how many successful IT transformation programs there are out there, and you try and dissect, so what's made some programs more successful than others. So, in my current role, I get called the king of analogies quite often by people I care about and a lot of people around me. But the one I trade on lots of analogies, but the one I seem to use quite a lot. And I know it's working because I hear other people use it. In fact, there are two. I'll give you a brief explanation of two. But the one I use quite a lot, I've got a big focus in my current role around a large program. The way I describe it is we're trying to upgrade an aircraft whilst it's in flight. Okay, so, and it's such a significant program that it's effectively like changing one of the engines whilst it's in flight. And it just allows people to understand the risk profile around what we're doing. So if we're trying to change an engine whilst it's in flight, we better make sure the other engine is sound. We better make sure that we don't introduce too much additional change in the way the pilot is flying the thing, the other components of the
wing
aircraft.
structure.
Yeah.
Don't change the wheels, for God's sake.
That's right. So if we try and change too much on an aircraft that's in flight, then we're introducing risk to the organization. And it's not just project risk, it's really corporate risk or reputational risk if the aircraft doesn't keep flying. So I use that analogy quite a lot to say, we're upgrading the aircraft. If we're going to change one of the engines, let's not try and change the other engine at the same time because you're going to be a glider for a while. How do you feel about that?
Yes.
And I like to
How do
say,
the passengers feel about that?
Yeah. So I like to describe it in the way of, this is what you're asking me to do in the context of upgrading an aircraft whilst it's in flight. And if the response is, but you still need to do it, then I basically say, here's the risk. How do you feel about the risk? And it does change the narrative from just do it to I now understand why we've got to be we've got to be cautious and about understanding what we're doing. So I use that one quite a lot. The other one that I really like, and it's a little bit linked to your question about how do you win the hearts and minds. Years ago, somebody told me a story, and a lot of people listening to this will have heard it, but a story of JFK walking around NASA in the 60s, comes across this guy who's sweeping the corridor, and he asks him, "What's your job?" And he says, "I'm helping to get a man on the moon." Okay, and it just makes the hairs on the back of my neck stand up whenever I say that, which is there was a clear mission, regardless of whatever your role is, whatever your contribution is, there was a clear mission towards achieving an outcome or supporting an outcome. So I've always been very conscious of how do we make sure everybody understands what their contribution is to achieving an outcome, no matter how big or small. That's another part of my heart is in it because I understand my contribution. It's not just a case of I'm doing my job, I'm going home with my paycheck. I think you've got to understand what your contribution is. So I do work on that quite hard.
All right, Chief, there we have it for this week with your mini Chief episode. All the links and show notes can be found at chiefmaker.com/371. Now, Chief, has your career or personal growth stalled? Are you overloaded with work and commitments that make it impossible to stay in front of the game? Or are you constantly fighting soul-destroying internal politics and bureaucracy and you just want to get things done? Well, the Chief Maker 5-step great method outlined in my book, which managed to get Amazon bestseller status, is a roadmap for any senior leader or manager who wants to rise above the politics and overload of the corporate world and master their profession. It's a 5-step process to get on the executive team if that's what you're looking for. Of course, Chief, if you just want to have more influence, more clarity, improved confidence at work, and be sure you're on the right path in your career, essentially a career strategy and roadmap, then get a copy of the book. You'll learn a whole bunch of frameworks that I've elicited from so many of the great chiefs that have been on this show and through over a decade coaching senior executives from all over the world. Just go to chiefmaker.com/book and you can order your free copy where all you'll pay is the shipping. And if you would like to stay in touch and hear all about some of the best resources that you can find anywhere in the world to improve your performance at work, go to chiefmaker.com/subscribe. Now, Chief, if you're yet to rate the episode and subscribe, I hope you'll do so soon. It helps others see the magnificent value that the chiefs and gurus bring to their life and career. So make sure you hit subscribe on your podcast app now, give it a 5-star rating if you think it's worthy, and leave a short review about your favourite episode. Righto, Chiefs, as always, remember to stay epic.